Hi, I'm Annemaike, and this will only be my second video ever for this channel. So yeah, I'm a newbie, basically. I've started this channel because I'm really passionate about discovering topics like psychology and other social topics and looking at them from an alternative and critical angle. And I would like to share that with you because ultimately I hope I can help you reach more fulfillment in life and get closer to your true self in a world that is pretty chaotic, if you ask me. So, yeah, I've made a video before why I was homeschooled. Um, but the main reason why I wanted to make this video again was because I felt like that video was quite socially acceptable, to call it that way, because that was basically the first time I was talking about the topic in a public way. And yeah, I was scared to be too outspoken. I was a bit careful. And now I've spoken about it much more, and yeah, I feel more comfortable with being a bit more blunt, and I also feel like that would be useful for people to hear, like more crude honesty or whatever. Also, I wanted to improve the quality. That would be also a nice thing. And yeah, the previous one was made in Dutch. And a lot of my friends and social media friends, they are non-Dutch speakers. So even though there are subtitles, it was still kind of annoying that I couldn't easily share it with them. Yeah, you can still watch that video. I will put a link right here. So if you're interested in that, specifically also for a more Dutch perspective on homeschooling, because here I will be more internationally focused maybe. Okay, so that's why I'm making this video, and let's dive right into the content. Okay. Yeah, around the time when I first went to school, I was extremely studious. I was like a young Hermione, and I was super eager to learn. I taught myself how to write and read and do math already before I learned that at school, and I was super excited that I would have the chance to learn more about that at school. The thing is, it became clear pretty quickly that the way that they were teaching at school didn't work for me, because how I learn, I know now, is I dive deeply into a subject. I make sure I understand it, and once I understand it, it's just in my brain for the rest of my life. I will not forget it. It will be part of my network of knowledge. And at schools, the way that they teach is mostly based on memorizing and repetition, and there's relatively little context to put that knowledge into, and it's not focused on building upon interest, etc. And yeah, that didn't work for me. So every time I had to repeat things and just memorize empty knowledge, that was horrible for me. And yeah, maybe you would recognize that as well. So that way of learning really demotivated me. By the way, I have a little bit of a cold, so you might hear that from my voice, but it's not contagious on video, so don't worry about it. Yeah, in general, I didn't have a good time in school. Let's just make that clear. And another factor next to the way of learning that impacted that, I think, was that I identify myself as a highly sensitive person. Yeah, which means that I'm just everything just hits harder, also in a positive sense, but it can also work really negatively. So, and my teacher, she wasn't very mentally stable, I understand. So I was basically feeling all of her emotional garbage, and apart from that, I was also really sensitive to injustice. Like, I would see the teachers being unjust to children because, like, let's be real, they are sometimes. It's not like in such a big class everything can happen like within justice. Well, anyway, I was having a lot of problems with my teacher, and that was maybe even more of a problem than, yeah, my way of learning not fitting with the school. And like all of those things together, they resulted in me becoming chronically depressed. That was like, I would say the actual depression was between 9 and 13 years old. Yeah, and that depression had a huge impact on my development. I only ever got negative feedback, I feel, from everything I did. Like, I was bad at school, I was bad at athletics, and yeah, so that just gave me the feeling like I was bad at everything, and the depression, it yeah, it worsened that because when you are depressed, you don't want to put in a lot of effort because you don't have the motivation to do so. But if you don't put in a lot of effort, you're not going to get positive results. So yeah, it's an endless negative feedback loop. And like, because of all of that, I had pretty bad self-esteem issues. Yeah, I still do to some extent. I still have what they call imposter syndrome. Like, it's really hard for me to believe that I am actually good at something, but I think rationally that they have this quote. I've seen it on Facebook, probably. It's something like, you can't judge a fish by how it's by its ability to climb a tree. And yeah, that's basically how it works at school as well. Like, for example, for me, that the way of learning was really just not the right way for me, and that's why it seemed like I wasn't capable of doing things. And that's just terrible. So yes, when I was 12, around that age, that was the lowest point. I was crying in my bed and I said, "Mom, please don't let me go to school. I will just not go." I completely refused because I felt so terrible and scared and anxious. So yeah, my mom, she let me stay at home. And from that moment on, I didn't go to school anymore. And homeschooling is semi legal in the Netherlands. So yeah, it's very complicated. I could make a whole less interesting video about that. I don't want to go into that too much. I came into contact with youth care and child protection. And child protection, they started a court case to take the custody from my parents because they believed that every child had to go to school. And yeah, if my parents wouldn't let me go to school, wouldn't force me to go to school, then yeah, they would take the custody and like send me to school anyway. And that idea was horrible to me because they just wanted me to be like, go to school like every other child, and they didn't care about how I was really doing and like how bad school actually was for me. Yeah, so there was a court case with childcare, and I had to talk with a judge, and she asked me questions, and this moment was really weird in a positive way because I felt like so much was at stake that I was like in my full power, and I answered those questions like, I don't know, not like a 12-year-old child, or maybe I was a bit older by that time. I answered very clearly, and yeah, I made the judge very happy, I think, because she decided that everything was fine with me and that the custody should stay with my parents. Luckily, well, that was really scary. So after that, I was able to do homeschooling finally, and yeah, I had the opportunity to start learning in a way that worked for me. And I'm almost kind of a bit embarrassed to say how little time I spent studying. It's just crazy. Like at some point I decided I wanted to have my high school diploma, and I literally got it in like 1/10 of the time that other people did. Um, yeah, very little of my days was spent on actually studying for the diploma. And because I was learning so efficiently, I had a lot of space to develop other interests and talents. People, they they've remarked like how can you do so many things? Because I do like singing, I do playing instruments, I do drawing, I do um, handiwork, or how do you call it? Like I do knitting and sewing, and I read a lot. Like I was reading books about psychology and those kind of topics when I was 14 or something, or maybe even younger. And yeah, I had a lot of time to like learn about topics that were relevant to me as well as get my diploma. So that was really great. I yeah. So why was I homeschooled? Out of pure necessity, basically, because I was suffering the system, the school system. It didn't work for me. It made me completely depressed. And yeah, I think the school system sucks in general. That's my opinion, because there are huge classes. Like everybody I talk with, um, who wants or wanted to become a teacher or who is teaching now, they say they hated how many children are in a class, and it's not yeah how they want their job to be. There's also really high work pressure, and yeah, the way the system works with the memorizing and the repetition, um, that only works probably for like 35% of children, I would say. And like the other 65%, they have a completely different way of learning. Um, yeah, which is much more based on understanding topics. And for them, it's like really hard and empty to memorize things and repeat them. So yeah, it didn't work for me, the system. And I imagine it doesn't work for a lot of children. Maybe it also didn't work for you. I see homeschooling as a legitimately better option than ruining your child's life by forcing them into a system that doesn't work for them, that's like not made for how they learn. Because to me, it's absurd to have like one system, one school system that should work for every child. Well, like obviously people are so different. So yeah, I think homeschooling should be considered in the current situation as a good option.